Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're taking a radically neutral, fiercely objective look at a highly sensationalized topic that has absolutely been dominating alternative media and political commentary lately. We're breaking down a really fascinating academic paper by Michael R. Williams titled Mark of the Beast or Hype of the Beast. Look, whether you approach this from a theological perspective, a technological one, or purely as an observer of modern financial policy, this paper does something entirely unique. It strips away all that emotional hyperbole and applies a rigorous academic framework to our emerging financial systems. We're going to look at the raw data, the architecture, and the actual engineering of today's financial tech just to see what is really going on behind the scenes. Okay, let's dive into this. Here is the roadmap for our investigation today. We'll start with prophecy or hype, build out our 5-condition framework, look at history's incomplete prototypes, analyze modern financial architectures, synthesize a prototype, and finally, examine the ideological gap. Section 1, prophecy or internet hype. So, over the last few years, there's been this massive, undeniable surge in commentary surrounding a very specific 52-word passage from Revelation 13. You probably know the one. It describes a global system where no one can buy or sell without a specific mark. Which really brings us to our core question for today. Is this mark a technological reality taking shape right now, or is it just internet hype? We're taking a sort of Mythbusters approach here. We're using that historical text purely as an objective, operational yardstick to evaluate some of these wild real-world claims. And man, those claims are everywhere. As Williams documents in his research, political and alternative media influencers are aggressively driving this narrative. Just to give you an example, Glenn Beck stated back in 2022, maybe we should start having the conversation of, gosh, this looks like the mark of the beast. And similar sentiments have been echoed by figures like Marjorie Taylor Greene and Alex Jones. But what's really fascinating here is why this matters. While this narrative spreads like wildfire across podcast platforms and video sharing sites, the academic finance literature has basically ignored it, like complete radio silence, until now. Williams steps in to finally analyze these internet rumors dispassionately with actual science and engineering principles. Section 2, the 5-condition framework. To actually do this analysis, the paper establishes a really critical distinction. On one side, we have the MOB, the full mark of the beast system. This is the fully realized, eschatological, end-of-the-world state described in the text. But on the other side, we have a MOP, a mark of the beast prototype. This would be a system that meets most, but not quite all, of the operational criteria. It's basically a partial system. So what exactly are those criteria? Well, the paper distills 5 specific operational conditions directly from the text of Revelation 13. Condition 1 is universality. It has to apply to everyone, rich, poor, free, and bond. 2 is a binary admit/exclude function, basically a hard gatekeeping mechanism for buying and selling. 3 is a tamper-evident ID, a mark tied directly to the physical person. 4 is comprehensive reach, meaning parallel systems like physical cash are completely eliminated. You can't just opt out. And condition 5, a coercive ideological loyalty test. This checklist right here is the core methodological contribution of the paper. It's brilliant. Conditions 1 through 4 create a prototype. Add condition 5 to the mix and you have the full system. Section 3, history's incomplete prototypes. History is actually littered with episodes of financial repression. The paper tests several of them against our new framework. It looks at the Diocletian libellus in 250 AD Rome, which literally required a certificate of pagan sacrifice just to participate in society. It looks at exclusionary medieval guilds, all the way up to FDR's 1933 gold confiscation, and even India's massive 2016 demonetization. But the final verdict? While these episodes certainly demonstrated intense financial control, they fundamentally lacked the technological infrastructure to be anything more than very limited partial prototypes. They just didn't have the tech to meet those 5 conditions on a global scale. Section 4, modern financial architectures. Now, what's really interesting about this is how today's tech holds up. The research breaks down the 3 dominant financial architectures of our modern era. You've got the Chinese social credit scoring model, the European central bank digital currency model, and the American decentralized finance model. It's so fascinating to see how Williams dissects each of these layer by layer, looking at exactly where the data inputs come from, how the currency is issued, and how the actual ledgers operate under the hood. Let's look a little closer at 2 of these to see the contrast. The European CBDC model relies on centralized intermediation. The central bank issues the digital euro, and commercial banks handle the strict know-your-customer onboarding.
This creates an incredibly strong identity binding using systems like EIDAS, Europe's digital identity framework. Now, contrast that top-down approach with American decentralized finance. DeFi operates on permissionless ledger layers like Bitcoin or Ethereum. It's decentralized at its core, though it does interface with U.S. regulatory enforcement at its perimeters through exchanges and stablecoin issuers. So neither system is universally complete on its own.
Section 5. The prototype synthesis. And this brilliantly illustrates the absolute most striking finding of the research. When evaluated independently, no single architecture satisfies the framework. But if you synthesize them, if you combine China's massive data aggregation, Europe's centralized identity binding, and America's programmatic ledger reach, their integrated combination technically fulfills 4 out of the 5 conditions right now, today. The technical preconditions for them to interoperate, like common identity standards and compliance data exchange protocols, they are already well understood and even partially deployed.
Section 6. The ideological gap. So, the absolutely crucial point here is this number, 4. 4 out of our 5 conditions can currently be met by synthesizing today's technology. This means the engineering distance to a highly functional Mark of the Beast prototype is markedly smaller than at any prior point in human history. The technological gap is, for all intents and purposes, functionally closed. So what's missing? Well, the remaining gap separating our modern financial architectures from the apocalyptic system described in the text is no longer technological. It's condition 5, the coercive ideological loyalty test. The barrier now is entirely political, situational, and ideological. It would require the statutory demand for allegiance to a future totalitarian ruler. Today's systems might extensively track your behavior or verify your identity, sure, but they do not yet mandate a universally coercive test of ideological allegiance just to buy groceries or pay your rent. But man, that leaves us with a highly provocative thought to close on. The infrastructure is essentially built and it's just waiting in the wings. So if the technology is already here, what happens during the next major global crisis? As the paper notes, the emergence of such a system would be vastly accelerated under crisis scenarios where governments naturally consolidate power and financial control. The tools are literally on the table. The question is simply who will pick them up and when. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive. Keep questioning, keep learning, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.